Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Salma. I'm a mom of 6, and here on this channel we talk about all things related to parenting Muslim kids and building a Muslim family. So Ramadan is now past us, and most of us, have been reading Quran more frequently, more often during Ramadan. And, of course, there's a special barakah in the month of Ramadan. This is the month of the Quran. But then past Ramadan, many people struggle to keep the habit of, reading Quran regularly, right? And so today I want to talk about, how to read a juz a day, right? Because this is kind of frequently that's thrown out as a goal, to complete a full Quran reading in a month, right? If you read a juz a day, which is about 20 pages, right? A juz is about 20 pages, and there's 30 ajzaa, 30 parts of the Quran, 604 pages in total. So how could we complete a Quran reading each month, right? This is kind of the idea. How do we complete a juz a day? And I think here, before we start with any specific strategies, it helps to kind of define your goal. What do you mean by reading a juz a day? And I think this is what a lot of people kind of say, oh, I'd like to complete the Quran reading in a month. What do you mean exactly by it? Do you mean just the Arabic? Do you want to just complete the Arabic? Do you want to read a translation? Do you want to read a tafsir? Do you want to study, word by word, these kind of things? Because obviously then that is going to look very differently, right? I did a video about how I study the Quran, how I trace the letters, how I read the tafsir, how I read the word by word meaning, right? So this is a separate topic which I can kind of put under the heading of studying the Quran, right? Or like spending more time with the word of Allah. But here today, I just want to talk about just the reading, the recitation of the Quran, right? So for the purposes of this video, we're just defining as just like reciting the Quran one juz a day, right? And how you might get there and why you might have a hard time getting there, right? And so I think the definition matters, right? Because I think when we say we want to read a juz a day, and then we kind of start including the translation, and then we start including all these other things, it becomes a much more time-consuming matter, and then that's why a lot of people kind of have a hard time fitting it into their day. So if you just kind of define it as I'm going to read the Quran and then I'm going to study the Quran at a different time, maybe once a week or twice a week, then you might have an easier time squeezing in the reading and the recitation of the book of Allah. Okay, so we're talking about the recitation here. One of the things that helps us in the beginning is to just define your level of reading, right? And so many of us have learned to read Quran when we're children, right? As part of some madrasa program, or maybe by our parents, who were teaching us or sending us to the sheikh. A lot of us learn the Quran in our youth, as teenagers, or maybe some of us are coming to it as adults, right? And so it's important to kind of determine your level of Arabic reading, how long does it take you to read a page, and how fluent are you in your recitation? If you're just beginning, if you're not even fluent in reciting the words of Allah, reading a juz a day should not even be a goal, right? And so this is, I think, important, because a lot of times we make impossible goals in the sense of like they're unrealistic goals, and then we have a hard time achieving them, and then we end up feeling disappointed in ourselves, and then we kind of quit and we say this is not for us, right? Now, I'm not saying you're never going to get there. If you're not that fluent, there's many ways on how you can get there, right? Like you need to maybe take a course, or you need to sit with a teacher on how to improve your fluency. There's many online options these days, right? But if you're not fluent, and if you're not able to fluently read the book of Allah, it's going to be very difficult to recite a juz a day. So that might be something more of an intermediate goal, so to speak, right? So if we kind of think of the journey, there might be the journey of just starting to read, and then might be a journey of reading a juz a day, and then might be the more advanced levels of maybe revising or reading 3 ajzaa a day or 5 juz a day. It's frequently said, that who recites 5 a day will never forget, right? So if you were to read 5 juz a day, that would mean you would complete your recitation within a week, right? And that would keep your memory super, super fresh, right? And so that's maybe an advanced goal. So I think it's important to kind of think where you fall on the journey of the reading the Quran, And so today we're talking about the group, sort of the intermediate group that wants to read 1 juz a day, right? And so you have to determine your fluency level. You have to kind of say, hey, okay, how long it's going to take me to read a page, right? And so the more advanced Hufaz people that have been memorizing the Quran, that are very confident and they're very familiar with the Book of Allah, they might be able to just recite a juz in about 20 minutes, right? That's kind of the faster pace, and they're very familiar and they can just kind of fluently go through it. So it's in about 20 minutes they can do a juz. Now, for intermediate people, that is quite fast. That would mean 1 minute per page, right? And so I don't think a lot of people are able to do that initially, right? You might get into it, but initially, if your goal is to start reading a juz a day and you haven't been able to do this, I think it's important just to kind of consider how long does it take you to read a page. So for starters, I would time myself just reading one page, any page of the Quran. Open up a random page just so you can kind of test your fluency, and then time it, because I think often we're unrealistic, how long it's going to take us to read a juz a day. So we kind of just say, oh yeah, I want to read a juz of a Quran daily, but then we don't realize how long it actually takes, and then we don't end up doing it. We end up squeezing in a few pages here and there, right? So I think it's important to be realistic how long is something is going to take you, right? And so if it takes you about 3 minutes, if it takes you about 5 minutes. Now, if a single page takes you about 10 minutes or longer, I think, it's time to reconsider your fluency levels, right? And so just kind of keep that in mind, that this might not be then a goal for you to set. The second important thing then, if you're not that fluent, is maybe to get into the habit of spending 30 minutes a day with the Quran, or maybe 25, because a lot of those online timers, the Pomodoro technique timers, they're about 25-minute range, right? So if you kind of get into the habit of spending at least 25 minutes with the word of Allah, with the Book of Allah, so 25 minutes a day, initially maybe you're not going to be able to read maybe one page initially, right? And then 10 pages, right? And so you're kind of going to increase your fluency, but at least you're going to identify a chunk of your time in your daytime. You're going to show up every day for 25 minutes, and that's going to help you build a habit of eventually reading a juz a day in those 25-minute slots, inshallah, right? And so for somebody who is maybe intermediate, it's going to take them about an hour to read a juz. Maybe 45 minutes, 35 minutes, depending on your speed, how fast you want to go, how particular you are about tajweed rulings and things like that. But it should not take you more than an hour. If it's taking you more than an hour, it's going to be very difficult to squeeze in your day on a regular basis. And we want to make sure we commit daily, right? Like if we're going to show up reciting a juz a day, if it's taking 2 hours, and I'm not saying you should not recite Quran for 2 hours, but realistically, if it's going to take you more than an hour, it's going to be very difficult to show up, and your fluency might not be there. So I think for the kind of intermediate group purposes, a juz should take you about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something in that range, right? And so I'd like to suggest the 2 Pomodoro timers, right? 25 and 25. That should kind of split it up, So maybe you'll read half a juz in one and then half another, the other half in the other slot, right? So this is kind of the timing. And I think it's important to be realistic here, how long something is going to take you, and to be honest, to yourself about your fluency level, about your ability, because that's going to affect your ability to show up, right? And so we've determined your goal, we've determined how long it's going to take you on a daily basis, and now it's a matter of like, how are you going to show up? Where are you going to squeeze this time? It's important to use, techniques like maybe, some of those that you've come across, from Atomic Habits, or how to build a habit. This is something that can be integrated in this process. So to make it obvious, to keep the Quran somewhere where you're going to see it, to kind of make it attractive, to use a mushaf that sparks joy for you, that you enjoy the letters or that you enjoy the feel of the paper. So something about the whole process, maybe you're going to stack the habit, maybe you're going to do it, you're going to make a cup of coffee and then you're going to recite the Quran, or you're going to make your environment extra special. Maybe you're going to put you're going to do it in an area where you enjoy sitting, maybe in your favorite office chair, or in some nook that you have created. So it's important to kind of make the whole process enjoyable, right? And so you can be creative here, in terms of what sparks joy for you. Okay, so make it obvious, make it attractive, make it very easy. Okay, and so what I mean here by easy is what is the bare minimum you can show up every single day, right? And so this is what I'm saying is maybe dedicate 25 minutes. If your goal is to read a juz a day, maybe start with that and then see how it goes. Like just, kind of show up every single day without skipping. We don't want to have any 0 days, right? So we want to have kind of 0 skips. That's what I mean by it. So what is the bare minimum, and make it easy for you to show up, right? Now, for beginners, you might not be able to finish a whole juz in this 25-minute slot, and it's maybe too difficult to find 45 minutes or 50 minutes of your time. So what I would recommend, and this is something I've done over the years, when I couldn't commit to reading the whole juz a day, but I still wanted to kind of keep the concept, I would flip through the juz, or I would read as much as I could from that particular juz on that particular day, because that way, I wasn't always stuck on juz 1, right, or juz 2, and where I would get discouraged and then I would kind of lose track. But then I would start, with day 1 month of the month. You can pick an Islamic month, or you can pick just the regular calendar. And so if today was the 5th of the month, that would mean I'm reading the 5th juz, right? And so if I'm still not quite there yet, at least I would start reading the 5th juz. And then if I would kind of see that I'm running out of time, or that, I'm losing focus and I'm not going to be able to finish the whole juz, at least I would flip through the juz. So what would that mean? I would look at the surahs. I would try to remind myself of the stories. I would just kind of see if there's anything, that stands out about it. So that would keep my interest, and it would keep me motivated to come back to it, inshallah. Maybe next month, I would complete more pages of that particular juz, right? But I would still stay with the schedule of reading a juz a day, right? And so, because sometimes when we fall back, and I don't know, we're supposed to be on the 7th juz, but we are on the 2nd, we just kind of give up. Oh, it's too behind. I can't ever catch up, right? And so the idea is just to pick up where you're at. So use the calendar and just kind of say, okay, I'm going to read as much of this juz as I can today. And then if not, I'm just going to flip through the rest of the juz, just kind of to know where the surahs are, just kind of see if the stories are familiar, what is going on in that juz, is there maybe any difficult words that I've marked from before, something just like that. So this way, if you set up 25 minutes with a timer, you kind of have a chance to show up, at least, do the bare minimum, right? And so this is kind of, you want to show up every single day, in a way that makes sense. And then make it very satisfying for yourself, so try to maybe use a tracker if that gives you satisfaction, so where you can track the juz that you have read. You can make it, you can have an accountability partner with somebody, you can check in maybe with your spouse, maybe you guys can read together. You can set up a time where you're reading together. Maybe you can read together as a family where everybody's reading certain pages, right? But you can kind of create that whole process that it's more satisfying for you, right? And so you're going to make it obvious, you're going to make it attractive, you're going to make it easy, and you're going to try to make it very satisfying for you. And again, this can look for many different people in different ways, but the key is to commit to 25 to 50 minutes of your time, inshallah, to read that juz a day, inshallah. And I think it's important just to kind of break it down, just to kind of see that this is a project. When I used to say in the past, I want to read a juz a day, it wasn't very clearly defined. And then I would kind of, I would put it as a to-do list thing on my list, read a juz, but I didn't consider all these other steps. So if you're familiar with the getting things done, ideas, there are certain things that are projects, and then there are certain things that are the to-dos, like the tasks. And so reading a juz a day is a project, right? It's a commitment. It's something, it's an area of responsibility. It's something you want to be doing across your lifetime, inshallah, right? And so if you break it down and, what's the next step? How can I prepare? If I don't know where my mushaf is, if I don't know where I'm going to be, if there is chaos around me, right? Those are all things, and then I'm going to, kind of get distracted and sidetracked. But if I kind of make it as easy as possible, as if I just prepare my area, if I prepare my mushaf, if I prepare where I'm going to be, that's going to go a long way, in helping you reach your goals, inshallah. Now, there's a difference if you, of kind of how people approach it. Should you read in one go, or should you just read a couple pages at a time? I've done both things. Sometimes I have a chunk of time where I can just focus quietly and read the whole thing at once. Sometimes it's just busy, and so sometimes I'll just read a page or two, as much as I can, kind of going. And so in that case, it's helpful to have maybe a mushaf that you're going to be carrying with you, or maybe, have an app on the phone that's kind of showing up on your first screen that you can use. And so to kind of have the tools available that are going to make it easy for you to just kind of pick up where you left off, right? And just to kind of, so I find apps for that very helpful, but it's very important not to get sidetracked and not to start checking your social media and all these other things, right? So maybe delete everything off your phone if you're in this process, and just kind of keep your Quran apps on the first page if you're going to be using your phone for this. Or maybe you can have your iPad just for this purpose, or if you have another device. Some people prefer reading on the computer. These all, like, take advantage of these tools, how to get to that point where you can read inshallah a juz a day. So yeah, I think that's kind of the idea. And so the last thing that I want to mention is the resistance. A lot of times, we feel some sort of resistance. Why are we not getting to it? And so I just want to kind of analyze resistance in terms of starting. Like, if we're kind of resistant to start, it's usually some sort of procrastination. And procrastination is usually emotional, right? Something is bothering us. Maybe we're thinking we're going to fail. Maybe we're thinking we're not good enough. Maybe something is holding us back in that emotional sense. So if you're having a hard time getting started, it's kind of procrastination. But if you're feeling some sort of resistance after you've started, right? So you're already kind of in this kind of thing, and then you're feeling resistance, that's more of a feedback. That's not procrastination anymore. I would consider that feedback. Like, I would try to kind of ask myself, okay, so what's the resistance I'm feeling here? Maybe the time is not working out for me. Maybe the environment's not working for me. Like, what's bothering me? What is it that, where am I feeling this resistance, right? And so for me, a lot of it has to do with distractibility. Like, if I'm going to read and then kids are constantly interrupting. So, I have to sometimes just set that separate time where I'm going to read and just say, I don't want to be interrupted. Or sometimes the feedback can be, maybe my brain's too fried. Maybe it's just been too, it's in the evening or afternoon, and I'm just too tired mentally and I can't focus and I don't know what I'm reading, right? At some stages of my life, mornings were hard, even though there's a lot of barakah in the morning, but I was too exhausted because I was up all night with babies and things like that. And so I wasn't functioning in the morning. So sometimes it's the timing. And so you can play around with it. Like, if you're feeling resistance after you've started, after you've embarked, consider that a piece of information, kind of like a feedback that's going to give you, if you listen to it, it's going to give you more details as to, why are you resisting something and how you can fix it. In a lot of cases, I find that we picked off more than we can chew. So sometimes making the goal smaller with the hopes, inshallah, that we're going to get to the goal of reading a juz a day and completing an entire Quran reading. And as we complete it more often, inshallah, our fluency will get better. We will be more familiar with the words of Allah, and this will kind of become much, much, much easier, inshallah. So I hope this helps, inshallah, to kind of break it down and to hopefully help you on your way to become one of those people that are from Ahlul Qur'an, that are going to be spending every day of their days in the company of the Qur'an, that are going to spend at least 25 minutes every day with the words of Allah, and then, maybe up to an hour, inshallah, trying to read a juz a day, inshallah, even beyond Ramadan. Okay? I hope this helps, inshallah, and I'll see you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.